Hi, I'm Matt Walk, sports editor of the Emerald. With me is Isaac Rosenthal, digital editor, and we're here at CenturyLink Field in Seattle, where the Ducks took to the road for the first time this season and staved off a hungry Washington State team 51-26.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game because you hear that score and you kind of wonder where the story is in the game. But in the first half, it was anything but a blowout. It was 23-19 going into halftime, and it felt almost even closer than that.
Right, Oregon again ended up being dynamite, but we kind of had to wonder how long that fuse was, when they were going to finally explode, and it really came in the second half.
Yeah, and you had a little bit of a sense going into halftime. The Ducks had that series where they had one sack of Washington State, then another, leading to, I think it was 4th and 38 or something when Washington State eventually punted. But yeah, a very long ways, but you know, Oregon still had to come and find it in the second half, and they really didn't have it in the first half.
Yeah, the secondary really stepped up. They came out a little bit aggressive. They knew Mike Leach's team was going to throw the ball. They ended up throwing it 64 times. So the secondary was tested early and often. They came out, they had a couple personal fouls, a few pass interferences that could have gone either way before they really settled down, and they really capped everything off with Avery Patterson's pick six that really put the game on ice.
Yeah, and even early in the game when they had those pass interference penalties extending the drive, you know, for the most part they were extending drives that would end in 3 instead of 7, which is something that we've seen a bunch of times.
It's been a common theme. They've really stiffened up in the red zone all year long.
Yeah, in the red zone on third down, this Ducks team is very good defensively on the downs that they need to be, and I think the next step is making there be less of those downs in the first place.
Senior running back Kenyon Barner had a big day, 4 touchdowns, just under 200 yards on the ground. But let's talk about Oregon's Heisman candidate, potentially sophomore sensation DeAnthony Thomas.
Yeah, not really much of a sensation tonight. You know, very average numbers. You know, around 20, 30 yards on the ground and another 20, 30 yards receiving. I mean, not a bad night, but for somebody who's used to touching the ball once every 5 times he scores, the last 2 weeks really, it wasn't even just this week, have been kind of very normal for him.
Especially considering Washington State actually decided to kick to him. They didn't pooch the ball or kick it out of bounds. He got a lot of chances in the return game, but it just didn't happen. He had a 4-yard touchdown run that kind of padded his stats a little bit, but not what we're used to seeing from him.
No, not at all. And I think that, you know, this was a big stage, and you know, he's not a freshman, but he's still a young player, and you know, part of that could have been nerves, you know, but at the same time it didn't really hurt the Ducks at all. Kenyon Barner stepped it up, and he's really developing into a workhorse back himself.
He really is. Oregon returns to Autzen to face that other Washington team, the Huskies, next week. He shoved him, came up with it, lost it. Touchdown. Touchdown.